listeners.
It's been long since I spoke to you. I hope you're well.
Very well, very well. I've been around doing all kinds of things.
A couple, because of I've been following your post on Facebook. So a bit of context as to what you've been doing over the years in terms of your own advocacy, the kind of things you've been championing, as against also your advocacy on the gold board issue. You believe is a game changer. Then the arguments that are being pushed by the IEA through Justice Retired Sophia Akufo. Where is your disagreement with them when they propose that, well, we've taken one, why won't we take the second one, the Tarkwa mines? Where is your disagreement on that issue?
Right. I think, yes, a bit of context in terms of how I came to this debate is important. I come to this debate with about 30 years of experience working on extractive governance policies and advocacy. Between 2009 and 2014, I served on the World Bank Extractive Industry Advisory Group in Washington, advising the World Bank on their lending policy across the world.
A country like Australia,
it's also important to point out that I was the lead consultant for the African mining
is the reason why they will have an African firm,
gap
an African
analysis
country,
for Ghana, funded by the UNDP. I've been for more than a decade the chair of the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Again, I've been for more than a decade a member of the adjudicating board of the Mining Industry Award in Ghana. So I come to this discussion with a profound understanding of how things work in the industry. First, I do not doubt the managerial and technical capacity of Ghanaian mining firms. We have the ability to mine our own resources. Where I have some doubt is our capacity to raise the needed investments to operate world-class mines. Look, some of the companies mining gold in this country have an annual turnover that either comes close to our national GDP or are in excess of our national GDP. Such companies are able to raise much more investment resources on their balance sheet than a typical Ghanaian mining company can. So it's about investment. Even the richest economy in the world today, America, needs and depends on foreign direct investments. But you see, the sentiment about making sure that we increase Ghanaian ownership and content in the sector is long recognized. It is for this reason we created the mining procurement list and set aside about 56 items, which are mine inputs, to be supplied by Ghanaians. Now, how have we performed on that front? Not too well. A few Ghanaians who are taking advantage of the local content procurement list will take the contract instead of establishing the manufacturing capability to supply to the industry, and through that create jobs, which is the intent of local content. They head to China to bring their inputs. And when you do that, invariably you are shipping jobs to China. Meanwhile, those jobs are needed here in Ghana. Again, we recognize this and said, look, all mining companies must outsource their mining operations. So you have a few Ghanaian mining companies that are working for Goldfields and other multinationals as contract miners. And EMP is one of them. EMP mines for Tarkwa and mines for Diamond. It's all part of a strategy to build local capacity. But we are not there yet when it comes to raising the kind of investment capital we need to sustain production and remain Africa's leading producer. So my point is, if you gave the mine to a Ghanaian mining company, the mine will not collapse. But because they may not be able to raise finance as required to sustain the current production levels, our production will decline. It will be in Ghanaian hands, but the production will decline, and therefore government revenues will also decline. So I propose a strategy. Look, we shouldn't be led by sentiment. I'm a Ghanaian. I will be proud to see Ghanaians occupying the top echelon of the mining industry. But it calls for strategy. And my 3-point proposal is first, let's create opportunity for every Ghanaian to become a part owner of the companies that exploit our mineral resources by requiring them to list on the stock exchange. Some of them have done that already, Goldfields, for instance. So the argument about giving it to a Ghanaian company even doesn't hold within that context. When a Ghanaian who wants to be part owner of the mine has the opportunity to buy stock on the stock exchange. So Goldfields is partly Ghanaian owned. I mean, taking into consideration that we also have a carriage-free interest in the mine. My point number 2 is we should convert our free carried interest in all mining concessions into equity. And by that, become automatically entitled to a share of production. Under the current dispensation, our free carried interest is tied to the declaration of dividends. Dividends are declared in the boardroom. A company can make profit and decide, look, I want to plow back my profit into expansion of the mine, so I'm not paying dividends. And the country gets nothing. So it is the case that some companies have operated in this country for 10 years or more without paying dividends. So I recall about 5-6 days ago, the Ghana EITI proposed to government to consider converting our 10% carried interest into equity. Government's response was for us to tell them what the implication would be for public finance. We responded by explaining that once you convert it into equity, we should be prepared to respond to cash calls to finance operations. And then government backtracked because we don't have the money. We're a country that lives from hand to mouth. So this is the time. If we really want, let's create this kinds of opportunity. Let's convert our carried interest so we become at least automatically 10% owners of the mining operation. Currently, we don't have that entitlement. Then thirdly, as part of building the balance sheet of Ghanaian mining companies, let's encourage the creation of joint ventureship so that over time, the asset base and the balance sheet of the Ghanaian mining company is enhanced so that they can raise as much money as would be required to sustain production at the level that has made Ghana Africa's leading producer of gold. Again, I serve this caution that gradually Ghana is being perceived as a hostile investment destination. I got to find this out when I worked as a consultant in supporting the mining industry to develop an energy transition position paper. And it largely arises from the number of times we've been to international arbitration against companies. And in almost all the arbitrations, we lost. So what kind of signal are we sending to the international investment community? It is for this reason, partly though, that in over a decade now, we've not been able to attract even $1 into the oil industry. And today the oil industry is on its knees. If this remains the same, Ghana will have no oil industry in less than 10 years. So we should be careful. Even advanced countries caught FDR. Currently, as I speak, the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources is in the U.S. trying to cut international investments into the mining sector. So if you come back to Ghana and then treat investors this way, for me, I had no problem. And then let me come to your other question about Damine and Tarkwa. What's the difference? With Damine, it was clear that Goldfields was not interested in the mine. If we had renewed the contract, they would have flipped it to another buyer. This is exactly what Newmont did in Achim. They got their concession renewed, and then they sold it to the Chinese and made a cool $1 billion. So the signs were clear in Daman that Goldfields was not interested. They were not exploring. But the sustainability of a mine is dependent on exploration. They were only, for a number of years, I think close to 4 or 5 years, they were only processing stockpiles. So that once the stockpiles are exhausted, they can pack bag and baggage and leave. Under such context, if you renewed, you did so at your own risk. But in the case of Tarkwa, you see more seriousness on the part of the company. And they've been doing exploration and all that. They've not offended any of our laws. They've come to a point where their oil is not exhausted. And so they need an extension to continue operation. And you say, what? No, we should not renew, but give it to a Ghanaian. Which Ghanaian company has the capacity that Goldfields has to raise finance to sustain production at the level we all want? And so my question is that let's bid our time. Slowly, we will get there.
So, because you have been in the space for so long, you are saying that currently we do not have one Ghanaian company that can take on Tarkwa and mine it, like you said, at the levels that we are expecting.
If you are giving Tarkwa to EMP, I would say they may have the capacity to run it because it is our biggest local miner. But already, we have given Damine to EMP. We don't know how they are going to fare. Let's give them some time. See how they perform before we add them. Adding Tarkwa to the Damine portfolio for EMP will amount to perhaps biting more than we can chew.
And then you raised a very interesting point of how this would maybe build into that negative perception of the way we treat foreign direct investments. How do we do the fine balancing act? Or maybe the question is, at what point would you say we can comfortably take on these resources? And so we are pushing them from the hands of foreigners in the hands of local companies. At what point would it be comfortable to do that? What signs would you see to make you comfortable?
You see, what we need is not just guessing of what time we need to get there. What is important in this discussion is what is the national strategy for putting Ghanaians in the driver's seat over what time period. Taking due consideration of the technical, which I don't have any doubt about, administrative, which I don't have any doubt about, capacity. And then, more importantly, the financial capacity, which will require enhancement of the balance sheet of the Ghanaian company.
So for you, at this time, the best thing is to renew the lease.
My brother, that's what every serious resource endowed country does. Look, assuming we are able to get ExxonMobil into our oil industry, all the big players, the majors, will follow. The reason Ghana remains a popular destination for mining is because the big boys are here. It's because Newmont is here. It's because AngloGold is here. And it's because Goldfields is here. So Ghana becomes attractive because the medium-tier companies perceive that there must be something good. And that is why the big boys are here. Now, if you begin to act arbitrarily, your lease expires, I say, I don't renew it, for whatever reason, then the message you are sending to Newmont, the message you are sending is that be careful how much money you sink into your project. Because when your lease expires, there is no guarantee it will be renewed. So you will see a deceleration of investment in mine projects, and that will lead to a decline in production, and therefore a decline in government revenues. You don't send such bad signals when you need the revenues to finance your development.
Doc, thank you. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you, too. Pleasure.
Well, Dr. Steve Manteaw.